Hello there. Let's go do not disturb. Somebody let me know if I'm invited to the party. I didn't mean to moan when I hiccuped. Okay, we're live. It's public. Thank you for inviting me, Rosie, to the party. Let me make sure that I properly bookmark where we're going today. Okay, there it is. So, thank you guys for allowing me to postpone today's live, as I was dealing with a baby migraine yesterday. So, and somebody pointed out to me, they were like, "Oh, you also said you weren't feeling that great on your live on Monday," and I was like, "Oh, that's right. I said I had a headache." And this morning I had a headache, so I guess I'm going into headache season for me. So, at least you clicked on your YouTube notification just in time. I have the high tops for this outfit, but you're not going to be able to see them. So just like with every other shoe that I put together for an outfit for y'all, they gotta go. I'm a barefoot kind of bee. Trying to censor my words so that a sobriety-based live doesn't get demonetized. Thanks, YouTube, for monetizing my last one. You love these looks? Thank you. I actually really had fun. These little rhinestones, they are very difficult. They take a lot of time to put on, but I had fun with Ruse. As for costumes go, I want to surprise you guys, but like these two are obviously going to be like the most like wow. So in terms of a public live, would we rather see a cat costume or a Cassie costume? And let me just preface by saying, like, I don't have like BDSM harnesses or anything like that. The Rue look is a lot of fun. I had a whole other thing planned. I was going to try to do the carnival look with the big brown coat, and I had a coat like it's not super heavy, but it was like the same shape, and I was going to recreate that look. But then I was like, gosh, and then I was rewatching, and the projector scene where she's wearing the burgundy jumpsuit and she's like talking with the projector. I was like, that's so much more iconic, like, or more like, it's Rue's look. And I searched and I was like, oh, I'm not finding any decent like jumpsuits, certainly not in burgundy. So like cheap. I needed something cheap because I'm not going to spend a lot of money on something that's just going to be a costume. And then I looked on Amazon, and like the very last page that I clicked on, it was like this. And you think that it's going to look a certain way when it shows up because you're like, oh, it looks like that in the picture, but when it shows up, it's going to be all like polyester and like stretchy and like weird. But no, like it's not canvas, but it has a good look to it. I'm going to keep it, and I think I'm going to wear it. My goodness, I got so lucky with this one. You love my looks, Christelle. Thank you. Rosie, of course you want cat. Well, here's the thing. Whichever one we don't get on the public live, I will do for Patreon. Am I feeling better today? Yes, thank you. Somebody else, I want to hear other thoughts. Do we want Cassie or do we? I may do Cassie still for the public live and cat for Patreon. I like the cat look more, but it's not perfectly cat. It's not. Nor is a Cassie one perfectly Cassie. I just feel like her wardrobe's kind of boring to me. And then surprisingly enough, I don't know if I have the boob for it. I am feeling better today. Thank you. So here's what happened. I woke up and I had like, oh, I feel like a headache is starting to come on. And then I started to feel like nauseated. So I started to get, if you're a migraine person, you kind of know the differences between like the feeling of a headache versus the feeling of a migraine, and it started to feel like, "Ooh, this is, like, a little bit migraine-y." Like, I'm sitting at my desk and, like, the bright lights from the window are, like, they're irritating me, I can tell, and, like, I'm nauseated, so, I finally have, a prescription for Imitrex, which is awesome. Um, but my doctor, when he prescribed it, he was like, "Just make sure that you take it as soon as it starts." And so, I didn't take it as soon as I, like, woke up, but I took it as soon as I started to think it might be a migraine. And so here's what happened. I'm sorry, this is long-winded. So I felt for the most of the rest of the day, I felt like it wasn't completely gone, but, like, my migraine was arrested, like, where it was when I took the pill. Does that make sense? I don't know if anybody else has had an experience similar. That's why I'm bringing it up. Also wondering if I should dim the light a little bit again. Is that something that happens to people? Also, I'm hoping that the microphone works because I totally set it up for the microphone to be the audio input last time, and then I watched a little bit of the replay, and for sure, the webcam microphone is what was picking up. You remembered to like the video. Thank you, Shelby. There's only 11 people here, but yeah, if you could like the video, that'd be awesome. Or anybody watching in the playback. Um Logan, I vote BDSM fit. Side note for people I've never watched. Yeah, I don't have a BDSM fit. That's what I was saying. I can do my version of cat, but it won't have like the BDSM like harnesses and collars and stuff like that. Hermione Cats. That's interesting that you asked that. I wonder why. Well, I don't know if I should ask why somebody would ask me why I'm still sober. Yeah, I'm still sober. That's why I'm talking about sobriety. I don't know why so many people on the internet, and it's not necessarily you, but I think it's very cruel of certain people on the internet to go around and just purport that they just know that I've relapsed and that like it's just for sure because they just know what relapse looks like when clearly they don't. Um no, I wouldn't be able to keep it together. I would not be able to keep my job. I would not be able to buy a house. I would not be able to be alert for you here if I were not sober. Have I watched I watched the full series twice because I had to watch it the second time around to take notes. Um, thank you for liking the video, Allison. Um, Julia Beer says chronic migraine sufferer here, and yeah, absolutely, I know what you mean. I'm allergic to triptans, though. Thankful for some of the new options coming out for migraine. Oh, is that what Imitrex is? I'm just curious if if that's like what to expect. Like wherever you take it is like more or less where like I said, like where the migraine is arrested. Um Oh, so Hermione says, I don't think you are relapsed. You just seem different since the whole drama and is genuinely worried if things are okay. I hope I hope it shows that I'm different in a good way. I'm feeling a lot better. A lot better not only than I did during that time, because that was like one of the scariest times in a long time. Um, Still didn't relapse during that time because I'm not going to let that be more important than my brother's death. Um, but even better than I did before, like when my channel was like doing well and I was like getting views and I was like part of the, tea and drama and commentary communities. Like I am doing a lot better now than I was then. And I don't know, some people see it, some people might not. Either way, like at the end of the day, it doesn't really affect whether or not I am doing well. But to answer your question, I hope maybe I just seem different. Maybe I'm just different because because I'm one of the people who's grown through this situation, which some people have. Some people haven't. I haven't kept up. These days I'm just what we say in AA, just taking care of my side of the street. And so when I say like some other people have and other people haven't, I'm more referring to like I've watched how my friends have also gone through this. Um, no, Rachel, I appreciate the comment. I mean, it is, yeah, it's a little bit jarring for somebody to bring up like the way they do and like the way somebody did in a comment. Um, because what if I had relapsed? But then again, I'm just kind of like, if I had relapsed and I'm in front of a bunch of people, then it's on me to deal with. It's probably not the most couth, but I'm not super mad about it. I'd rather some but it's a weird thing because, like, there are so many rules with so many different things, and one of the rules probably with people in sobriety is to straight up ask, like, "Have you relapsed?" But I would rather somebody ask me if I've relapsed than somebody to come into my comments and be like, "You've definitely relapsed because this is exactly what a relapse looks like. It is identical to a relapse, and this is what a relapse looks like. And you might as well be," and like advice like, "You might as well be binge drinking," like shit like that's not okay. So like being asked, not nearly as like bothered by. How I'm very much enjoying the rhinestones in this look, by the way. I keep looking at myself like, "Ooh, who is she? Cheekbones, eye sockets, facial features, bones, muscles and fats." Um I'm just kind of catching up with the chat a little before we get into the thing because I realized that at least yesterday when we went through, um our Euphoria analysis, it didn't take quite as long as I expected. I was afraid that, like, it was gonna keep us here for, like, 3 hours, which it might once we get to the last installment, because the last installment involves season 2, episode 5, remember that one? As well as the finale, although I don't have a ton to say about that. Allison, do questions about your sobriety ever offend you? It seems personal and it's really great you're so open about it. I'm sure it helps a lot of people. Thank you for asking that. And I feel like if you guys want to ask questions about sobriety, here, this might be the place. This might be the stream. Questions? No, actually. And so that the reason I was jarred a little is because I can't necessarily say that's not necessarily the case for everyone who is sober. Um, you can ask whatever you want about my sobriety. For the most part, I can't think of anything that I'd be like, oh, I don't want to really answer that. Um, and and that's just because that's who I am. I'm painstakingly honest. I'm a TMIer, an oversharer. But I also believe in I believe that like as much as we love to talk about, and I'm not saying that other like mental illnesses don't deserve their spot, but I feel like we spend so much time advocating for so many things, and I don't know that there's enough advocacy. And I don't want to make my space on the internet as an advocate, but when it comes to sobriety, I am willing to step into those shoes because we don't have enough advocacy for sobriety, not just sobriety and recovery, but education around it. So if you want to know where a safe space is to talk about that, definitely you can ask me questions. Another really great safe space could be if for people who have more questions and are maybe struggling. And I would say join the Patreon at the $5 tier, and there's a room in the there's a closed channel, but anybody can join, and it's called the rooms. And so it's a room where you can go and talk, and you can, whether you're somebody who struggles with addiction yourself, or you're in sobriety, no longer struggling but still living, in recovery, or if you just know somebody who struggles with addiction, you're kind of an Al-Anon person, if you just simply want more education on it. Like, it's a pretty open room for anybody who wants who wants information. Um yeah, Hermione, I don't want to seem like anybody's ganging up on you. Yeah, it's if I seem different, I would say it's for the better. You know what might be too? I might be coming across more honest. I might be coming across a little more like, I do think I'm a lot less, like, focused on drama, which is so nice because 'cause I'm not consuming, like, drama content really. So I'm not speaking much to drama in general, but I'm not just tiptoeing around some sort of like SJW script like I was at points. And that what so when I say like I'm doing better than I was then, that's what I'm referring to because that shit really started to suffocate me and made me feel like no matter what I said, I was always going to say something wrong. And I don't feel like that so much anymore. I'm just kind of like, you know what? Like, and I've told my audience this, especially on Patreon, but I'll say it. I have to say it again here. Like, just given who I attracted, you are not in the wrong by being jarred by anything that I say or how I say something. Yeah, I'm scratching my daith just so you know. I'm like adjusting it. I attracted a certain audience and then I kind of bought into a script to, like, appease that audience, so that audience is not in the wrong to be jarred by any change in me, and, or be turned off or even so much as offended. So I'm not upset if anybody feels that way, but I do need people to understand, like I said to my patrons, that this is me and I'm going to continue to be as much me as one can be while they're in front of a camera. And so I need you to accept that I may say things that might make you uncomfortable or just make you not like me. And if that's the case, then feel free to voice your concern, but it just might not be the place for you. And I'm not saying that about you necessarily, but I could see how that could potentially be a change where you're like, is this for the better or is this for the worse? At the end of the day, you can really tell just by my general demeanor. I think I seem a lot happier because I am. Fire personality, more relaxed and calm. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I look, I don't wanna be so hard on you. I don't wanna be crazy hard on you for asking that question, but yeah, perhaps it's something entirely different. Maybe I'm just a lot more relaxed, which then somebody might be like, "Why does she seem so relaxed?" Because I don't I don't know that I really wanna go back and watch, like, the streams from before I left and took a break, but I might have been really tense before that. Why do I feel like I was stuck to an SJW script? I think I just um attracted a certain audience and community around me and I listened to people tell me what was the right thing to say in any given situation and um they're good people, and it's not to say that they're in the wrong, it's just not how I go about expressing my social awareness, and I believe that there were other people who just knew better than me, and so I listened to them, and so when I say script, it was quite literally a script. It was like, "When this happens, you say this. When this happens, you say this." Why? We don't know. You can Google it, but don't ask anyone, and so you don't really quite understand why exactly you're reciting a script. Whereas I am somebody who I I social awareness is very, very important to me, but I do so by living it. And I've come to learn that. I've mentioned a couple of times, particularly to my Patreon audience, that I've been working with a mentor on a monthly basis that is a YouTuber who's been doing this for over a decade. And I've come to realize that my brand of social awareness, I guess we could put it, comes from experience in, being military. That meant that I was moving from place to place to place every 2 years on average. And also being looking like a little white girl, adopted into a family that was primarily Black and Mexican. Also Korean, but the family itself, like, I didn't have my Korean family members. My dad is Black and Korean, but I didn't know that side of his family, so, like, my whole family is Black and Mexican and then, some Korean, but then I look white, but I'm the only white one in my family, and so you're just, like, steeped in all these cultures, and within your family life, and then you're moving around the country and even as far out as Hawaii and traveling all to all these different places and assimilating into different cultures. It really and then not only that, but I know there are a lot of people around me who similarly study people. We study people so intently to understand why do people do what they do. And I think that that is another way too of and this is kind of bringing us back to the discussion we were having on Monday. It's all a matter of bringing a sense of compassion and understanding. When you start to understand why people do the way what they do, that's what I'm most interested, I think, than anything in the world. That and interior design. If you want me to design any part of your home or help you rework your wardrobe, there are now Patreon tiers for that. So check that out. But um, yeah, so what I was saying was, we figure out, how people why people do what they do. We think about it. Some people think about this a ton, and it does breed understanding. And so what I was saying on Monday when talking about addicts, whether it be addicts in recovery or in active addiction or really and like in general anybody dealing with anything, but specifically to this conversation, I think it's important to bring a balance. I don't even wanna know if it's equal parts. I think it all depends on each situation, but it has to be a balance where on one side you have compassion and understanding, and on the other side, it's standards and accountability. And I was saying that I think that this, like, where everybody is kind of like coming to each conversation with a different balance of those 2 things, I think is why we fight on the internet. And I think that that's totally fine. I think you're dealing with, for the most part, all good people. But if you're coming to, like, for instance, like one thing that I talked a lot about, which I don't care to talk about anymore, but it's an example. I talked a lot about Gabby Hanna. And, you know, given all the behaviors that she was displaying last year, you had a lot of like her stands are still they still hate me. So it's like whatever. But like there was a lot of blind loyalty to her despite very bad behavior, extremely bad behavior. And so those people are coming to the table where it's all empathy and understanding and zero accountability or standards. Or let's look at the other way around. Somebody, who comes to the table and they really just hate a creator, that is engaged in whatever kind of drama. Let's just say like run of the mill, we can use me as an example. Some people hate me, hate me, like the person who left that comment on my stream last time. Um, and but have like zero understanding or empathy for who I am as a person. They're coming to the table with all standards and accountability and zero understanding or compassion. And so I think that those people, like when you're coming in with a 0, 100 type of balance, you're not really going to have a conversation or help anybody get anywhere in any situation. But if you do kind of bring some of one and some of the other, I think is where people have space to be encouraged to grow. And I was thinking about that whole concept of this balance right here. In fact, in thinking about how with regards to Euphoria, how Gia and Leslie interact with each other at different points throughout the show. So, one example I thought of was, and I don't know if it's in the notes for today, but you guys would probably know what scene I'm talking about. But there's a scene where they're all arguing in the living room, and then Rue storms out, and then Leslie and Gia start shouting at each other, and Gia says something like, you got to stop screaming at her, go easy on her. She's got a sickness. She's dealing with something or something like that. And then Leslie is like, you're going to become just like her. And she was like, well, at least it's not you. I think that's a situation where Gia is coming to the table with like 80% compassion, 20% accountability, and Leslie is the other way around. And so that like 60% discrepancy creates like a big space for a fight. Whereas there are moments where the two of them are coming to the table with like, like a 60-40, 40-60. And so they kind of are more on the same page. Does that make sense? This is how my brain works, and then whenever I realize I'm telling you how my brain works, then I start to get self-conscious, and I'm like, "Maybe I need to apologize for showing you how my brain works," and then people are like, "No, that's why we come to your channel." So, just let me know if that like, did that mean anything to anyone? 'Cause I'm also gonna read up on the chat real quick. Mm. Yeah, as long as we're respectful, we're pretty good here. And like I want to try not to beat up on people and make anybody feel too bad. So if you do feel that way, just let us know. We'll usually reassure you so long as if you're good, or if there's just just anything we should keep in mind. Um, Mona Lisa is asking, so the things you were saying before weren't things you believed. Was it more of you wanted to present a certain way? Genuine question. Sorry if I was a little brusque. Probably was presenting a certain way because I believed I was doing what I needed to be a good girl. Was I saying things that I believed? For sure at the time. I I don't know if perhaps some of those things I've changed my opinion on. I would have to visit like point by point. I don't know that I necessarily said much that I didn't agree with, but the way I was getting that message across was doing so in a way that was pleasing people on the internet. And like that I'm totally owning up to that and saying that. In fact, somebody called me out in the comments of somebody else's video and said, like, some of these people are like phony SJWs. This is not the kind of allyship that I want. This is not how I want somebody to stand up for me, my community. I even got annoyed with Alicia sometimes when she'd pull some of the phony SJW shit. And I was like, correct, correct. So, like I said, I wanna be socially aware, I just don't want to do it in such a way that I am learning a script that somebody else has already written that contains all the rules, and we just follow the rules instead of really understanding this thing. Because, like what I was saying with bringing that understanding and empathy, if you're able to do that with people who are dealing with things that are different from you, but you've taken the time to, like, understand what might be going on, you are able to treat people with sameness, and that, I think, is really important. That is something that I will say when it comes to the SJW circles that I see on the internet, I disagree with because I see a lot of them treating others, people who have certain maybe statuses that they don't themselves hold. I see a lot of what I didn't realize that this was a term that conservatives were using a ton until I heard Destiny say it, but, I just see a lot of infantilization of people of certain, like, people with certain disabilities or minority status of some sort, and I think, um, I don't I don't think I think it's so disrespectful, in my opinion. Like, if somebody the internet does not like to recognize my minority status for reasons, people fight. It's a power game. I don't We could have a whole live where we go into that and why. Um, but let's say that the internet recognized me as, a mentally ill and disabled, woman of color who is doing her best out here. Um, I would and then if I were to be treated the way I see some other people being treated, where it's like nothing I say is questioned, um, you know, everything I say is upheld and is treated as gospel, and I am praised as some sort of, otherworldly being because of the whatever minority boxes I can check, I would not like that. And I have a trans friend. I'm pretty sure he's fine with me mentioning this here in this chat, but I have a trans friend that says, yeah, I've been in those circles before where people have treated me like that, and I don't like it. I hate it. So I think that it's important to treat people with sameness in so much as they're able to be same with you. So if you're dealing with people who have a mind of their own and are capable of contending with you, it's important to treat them with sameness. Of course, I would never want to argue with somebody about their plight that is not a struggle that I personally know. But if we're just talking about something that we are both on, even playing field with, we should be able to contend with each other equally as peers. And that's something that has definitely changed in the past couple months for me, where I had to kind of navigate, like, what is it that I'm feeling and how do I put that into words? It's about sameness. You use empathy and compassion to understand people, but when you have that sense of sameness, that's when you're able to still hold people accountable, but also have compassion. In all fairness, Allison says, you did a great job handling all that pressure. I couldn't have done it. So I have a lot of respect for you for handling that pressure. Thank you so much. Um, Elise loves the idea of design wardrobe. Yay. Um, oh, Bet Davis, thank you for reminding people to give a like on the lives. Now we've got 40 people here, so we might need to get into these notes. We've already been at it for 30 minutes, though I'm enjoying the conversation, so it doesn't matter. Goopy Goop, I don't know. Hashtag water gang. Rosie got me. Lilac says you'll join Patreon slowly for help with the interior design. Literally mid huge home reno. Ooh, in Arlington. Hello. You're like, family in a sense. That's where my job is. Hello. Welcome, Lilac. So eloquently said. Thank you. Thank you, Allison. And that's a lot of math. Let's see. I may have to catch up on all the chats later because it's a lot of what you guys are talking a lot. So I don't want to waste your time by reading chats. But I hear a lot of you saying like that makes sense to you. So, um, true crime and commentary with Ashley. Thank you. You respect me for this. Thank you for that. How come you take accountability if you feel you were right and wrong, but other people don't do that and they are praised? It's just strange how the world works. Keep your doing you, mama. I agree. People, it's just a matter of the people you come across. And I'm not shitting on anyone. I'm not talking about anybody else but me. But I just try to do my best. And it used to be, what it used to be, kind of going back to Hermione's point. I used to apologize for things when I didn't necessarily feel like I was doing anything wrong. So I was like always apologizing, always trying to make sure that people were happy. And like, that's what I feel like I'm changing. I feel like I got a little bit of J-Lo thing going on here with the jumpsuit and the like high style. Cause like I said, like when I'm styling myself, I think it's without the glasses, I see the Hispanic girl in me more. Maybe if I start spending some time outside like I used to as a kid, I'll have the tan to match like I used to look Mexican. So let's see. Mona Lisa, I don't know what else to tell you in terms of missing my accountability because I've always been very honest about my reflections on myself. So if you mean accountability, and I'm not accusing you of this because I don't hear it from you, but for some people, they don't see the accountability that they want to see until they hear somebody apologize, or say a very specific thing that they've been wanting to hear. And sometimes we just won't get that. Sometimes we just aren't going to get what we want to hear from other people. Now, if I'm telling you that I used to speak in ways and move in ways that I wasn't totally connected to, and I had to take some time to introspect and grow from that so that I could show up on camera and not be stifled and suffocated by trying to please the internet. That is me literally telling you how I have thought about how I need to do things differently. So it's accountability, perhaps not in the way that you wanted, but like somebody said, we're just doing our best out here. Monali said, just I want to be done with this conversation, but in terms of saying I believe them at one point, now I'm saying it's because other people were making me say that. I didn't say that. I didn't say that I don't believe in these things anymore. I said that I was presenting myself a specific way that I don't necessarily connect to. I didn't connect to before and I don't connect to now. It just felt like I was trying really hard to be a good girl, and it's just I'm not I'm not expressing myself in the exact same way that I used to, and that's either something you're gonna see or you're not gonna see. So, if you I mean, if you're open to seeing me as a decent person and you're welcome to contend with me, then you might see it. If you are just waiting to hear something that I'm probably not gonna say, then we're just, like, at a dead end here. So we wanna talk about Euphoria here. Um, I can help with wardrobe and interiors, absolutely, but, it's a service that I've done through Patreon. So, let's see. I just need some bangles. Bangles for what? Um, I hear you and your perspective, Mona Lisa. I have taken moments where I think I've been wrong about some things and not about others, just like anybody. Um, yeah, accountability, right, means different things to different people. Um, Jen, thank you for the super chat. So fascinating as a child, sister of addicts. Rest in peace, mom. Oh, rest in peace to your mom. Thank you for the super chat. Yeah, so something I do before I get into in my notes. Oh, you're gonna give this video a like. Thank you, Ashley. Oh, bangles to be J Lo. I need my hoops. I call it my Latina girl hoops that I usually wear. You're right. That would be very J Lo outfit. Um, but something that our patrons were talking about in Discord was something that we discussed on Monday, which was, and I want to hear people's thoughts on this because we were talking about why Kat or Barbie Ferreira, why is it that she's been kind of noticed as being not as present in season 2 as she was in season 1, and then there were rumors kind of spinning around saying that, the one that I've heard most pronounced is that she was apparently Sam Levinson had the idea of creating a storyline for Cap that involved an ED, developing an ED, and Barbie Ferreira did not agree, allegedly, with this storyline or that this is a good storyline for Kat, and so that caused some friction on set. I heard that at least 2 times she stormed off set, um, and people have been kind of like speculating as to whether or not this is true. I think somebody on Monday said she addressed it and said that those rumors are not true, but then I watched a report on it and I heard various parties involved in this not denying that, just saying those are rumors. You're hearing rumors, they're rumors. Just, take rumors for what rumors are worth. Is kind of just like the message that they were putting across. So I didn't hear anybody deny or confirm those rumors. So unless anybody knows anything that I don't, um, changing actions is more important than the words, in my opinion. I agree with you, Bette Davis. I like that. Um, you got to go right now. See you later, Ashley. Um, Thank you for coming in and sharing some kind words. But yeah, I'm wondering if anybody heard something else that I didn't, because that's where I heard. And trust me, I'm consuming so much Euphoria videos, like since I've been doing research on this and stuff like that. Now it's like all I can watch, and I need to break the habit because I'm gonna be like blue balling, for like 2 years while we're waiting on the next season. Um, didn't Barbie say something about how Kat is going through more of an introspective journey? I'm not sure. You tell me. Perhaps she said that. The other thing too is that what somebody else pointed out is that if those rumors are true, say they have that disagreement, it's quite possible that whatever parts of that storyline that they filmed for season 2, they perhaps cut because me, the eternal optimist, hoping that the two of them came to an agreement. I would hope that if they came to an agreement about that, then Sam would be like, okay, we're going to have to, snip these scenes out of the storyline so that we can have her go in a different direction. And that would also account for why in season 2, there's seemingly a lot of like I've watched a couple of videos and where people were a little disappointed with how it went, and one person pointed out that, like, there are a lot of scenes that seem like they are padded out, like, they go on way too long. So, again, eternal optimist in me is just kind of, like, hoping that, like, maybe perhaps they came to an agreement about that, and thus that resulted in fewer scenes, not because they don't want her as part of the story, but because in post they decided not to go with that storyline. It's I think it's totally plausible. But I was gonna say that if they were to develop an ED storyline for anyone, because it's like it's super common, right? For young women, young girls and women. I would be honestly like, I think it would be more if you were just wanted to bring it up, like if you wanted to do it in a way that was not so cliche, you know, well, first of all, you could give one to a boy. Like that's one way to do it. But um I think another interesting way too would be, and not I'm not purporting that this should be one of the storylines, but what about Rue? What about Rue finding lasting recovery that takes long enough to where um because this is something that I've seen with friends, is that they do start to get healthier, but then they start to put on weight, and then that starts to create some sort of frustration with the recovery itself. So, but then that would almost require, Zendaya to put on weight, which I don't know if the girl even can. But that would be that would be more interesting to me than just like, oh, Kat's the bigger girl, and so she's unhappy with her body, so she has an eating disorder. Like that's not as interesting to me as like, oh, this is a healthy byproduct of getting clean, and the character who battles with addiction is unhappy with this element. So, I don't know, just something that I thought of. I'm going to take a 30-second break really quick so that I can be totally present and comfortable here. So, I'll be right back. Okay. Coffee bean. Interesting. I feel like every time I went to rehab as a young woman, there was a sense of competition among the girls being young and attractive. I was a little bit older. Then there was like the older people at rehab when I went, and then there were like the people who were like 5 years younger than me and more. I didn't feel a super intense sense of like competition with the other girls. We more got along, especially, like, I picked, like I made best friends with, like, the prettiest girl. Um, but maybe because we were, like, not allowed to talk to the opposite sex, that might have had something to do with, like like, not putting us like, basically taking certain things off our plates. And before I get into this, because I have been talking about that balance of, like, empathy and accountability, on that note of accountability, I just wanna add too, that when we do talk about things like accountability, you have to remember that every single person has a different, um oh, rehab romances, interesting concept. Um, what was I saying? You have to keep in mind that every person on the planet that ever lived has a different value system than everybody else. Absolutely different set of values. You and me, whoever you are, and me, we have different value systems. Probably have a lot that overlaps, but we have a good bit that doesn't overlap. So when we say, like, we're holding people accountable, or talk about whether or not somebody is good at holding themselves accountable, that's all. You can't expect people to, that doesn't mean the same thing. But somebody who holds themselves accountable is not necessarily somebody who is accountable to your standards, I guess is the way I want to put it. um Thank you, Andre. um and so, it's, at least when it comes to, like, ruse issues and stuff like that, there's certain, like, kind of, like, universal morality that I guess we can kind of play with. Like, you know, a lot of people probably agree that Cassie shouldn't be sleeping with her ex-boyfriend. So, like, maybe that's something that perhaps we all can agree, like, is there accountability for that? But then other people would have different opinions about that sort of thing. As far as active addiction goes, you were also kind of using the same, sorry, I'm kind of adjusting my little jumpsuit. We're kind of looking through it through a certain lens that's like the AA lens, the 12-step lens. And so, that's a certain way that, like, a group of people have developed a system so that they can hold each other accountable and say, look, we do have this shared value system, at least through the scope of looking at addiction and how we are holding ourselves and each other accountable to it. But in general, in life, and even within the scope of recovery, people have different values and different opinions of what's right and what's wrong. So bear in mind that everybody believes something different and everybody knows different things. People, we don't know all the facts of what's going on in someone's life. And so we can only hold people so accountable, especially to the things that we don't even know. Keep that in mind. But yeah, like, you talk to certain people who would say that, like, my way of doing sobriety is totally wrong. And then there are other people who are like, the way that Alicia does it right is totally right. And the way other people are doing it is totally wrong. Like, even within AA, it's difficult to hold people accountable to one standard because you still have differing opinions and contradictions within that. So, yeah, something to keep in mind just on the note of accountability. A person can be introspective and accountable, to their own value system, which might not necessarily match yours. Okay, let's see. Yeah, it's, rehab romances are frowned upon for a reason. We might talk about it sometime because I think I really need to get into these notes. So let's look at episode 5. It's called "Oh Three Bonnie and Clyde," which is a song by, Jay-Z and Beyonce. Um, and we kind of assume that it's referring to Nate and Maddie in this episode. So I'm just gonna go really quickly down the notes of what's happened in each of these episodes, and just like we did before, just talk about them as we go, but focus a little bit more on the addiction aspect. Um, yeah, so it H Woods, you're looks like you're doing sobriety in a certain way, but not necessarily the AA 12-step model. Um, you're on Suboxone, they don't like that. I'm also on certain psych meds that they wouldn't agree with. And I wouldn't say the AA or 12 step doesn't agree with those, but some people don't agree with those. So like I'm on medications that many people in AA or 12 step would say is not is frowned upon, um, but not everybody necessarily. And then you talk to some people, and people have very like are very hard nosed about certain things, but then you talk to other people, and they're like, "It's AA. You take what you like, and you leave the rest. Like whatever it takes to not drink. For me, it's drinking. Like whatever it takes to not get messed up. Whatever it takes to prevent you from going down that path that ruins your life." So, like I said, contradictions and just differing opinions even within that same little ecosystem. But I think what we can agree upon when we're holding Rue accountable is that when she's stealing and lying and using, and that's hurting the people in her life, particularly, especially her mother and her sister, like the people closest to her or the people she's doing the most damage to, we can for sure hold her accountable to, like to those things. So, mm, I had a sponsor that was really open-minded when I was in AA, like, when I was actively in AA. It's very much its own little, like, ecosystem too, and it's very much like it is a bubble and a lifestyle and, like, all of these things that, like, it's just never clicked with me to be that 100% of the time, and, like, but I do like the principles, and I do like to infuse my life with that model, and depending on who you talk to, it's like some people say that's great, some people say it's not. So, like I said, all depends. So let's go to season 1, episode 5. Cold open, we get Maddie's backstory. I'll be honest, I was a little underwhelmed with Maddie's backstory. It was just kind of like she grew up in doing pageants, and it taught her to have a lot of confidence, and then that's why she's so confident. And then, one day her mom said she couldn't do pageants anymore, and she like went on a strike, and then she realized that she really liked just not doing anything. So Maddie is just like confident, and she doesn't want to do anything. And that's pretty much like I really do think that there's room to really flesh out that character some more. Um but we did get the cold open on her backstory. We get more backstory on her relationship with Nate. And then we get to Rue, and she compares Jules and fentanyl as the best feelings in the world. I think she said next to fentanyl, feeling in the world, or the other way around. And she said she wishes she could have both. So Leslie warns Rue to take time with Jules, to take things slowly, and she says, "quote You're delicate," and Rue says, "I'm not delicate." So this is kind of going back to what somebody said. When you are first getting sober, clean and sober, you're in a super vulnerable place, a very vulnerable place, and that is one of the reasons that rehab romances are frowned upon, or not just rehab romances, but romances in the first year of sobriety. Um, they are they're not forbidden, but they are frowned upon because you are in a very vulnerable place, and it is a time where you're meant to be focusing on your recovery. In all honesty, I've told you guys this before. I ended up dating somebody short like a couple months out of rehab that I met at rehab, and like we didn't have anything going on while we were there because I had no idea he liked me. We were just in small group together. So even though the opposite sexes weren't allowed to interact, we were in small group, and you can interact in small group. So that's kind of how we got to know each other within the rules of this rehab. And then we were writing each other letters, and then we knew like this is frowned upon. We're not supposed to enter a relationship. So what we did was we were long distance, and so we just had a talk with each other and an agreement, and we had our parents very much involved too. Um, and just kind of made this agreement that like my sobriety comes before you, and vice versa. Like we said like, this is what I'm putting first, and if at any point this relationship is getting in the way of my recovery, then I've got to leave it behind. So we would like go to meetings together, but we stayed long distance so that we could focus on our doing our own meetings on our own and stuff like that. So it's frowned upon for a reason. I think it's a valid reason. I also think that like if you do end up dating somebody during that period, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to relapse. Um, but yeah, Leslie is that's kind of the point that Leslie's making here is like take your time because you're in a very delicate place. Like I'm so sorry like to Rue and for everybody who loves her, including myself, but Rue, come on. You're not delicate. You were in the hospital, you nearly died. You just got out of rehab like what? A couple months ago. You are absolutely delicate. And this is kind of that what is that? What's the word I'm trying to think of? This not a grandiose sense of self, but this unwarranted confidence is needs to get in check, and we know that she doesn't have it in check yet because shit's gonna go wrong. Um, oh yeah, Mindy did enter the chat not long ago. Actually, Mindy, you actually entered it right at the right time because we were actually just kind of chatting before this. Now we're actually getting to the actual episodes. So yeah, so after that, then we see things like the lip tattoo scene. So we see Rue and Jules getting the word rules tattooed, their ship name, you would assume, in their lips. And you have no reason to believe anything other than they got lip tattoos. I'm so bothered by the fact that my suit is writing up in the on one side that it's causing my sports bra to show. Um, excuse me. I'm not the most poised and graceful YouTuber you've ever watched. Um, but this scene is just kind of important to keep in mind because it goes back to the concept of Rue being the unreliable narrator, which we talked about. We talked about um I think another good example that I heard about was Edward Norton in Fight Club. There are certain narrators that they're out of their minds in some ways, or in some moments that you can't know that what they're saying is actually true. And then there's also that big question of how is Rue all knowing? How does she know so much about people's lives? Like, where did that come from? That there are certain theories, and one of them is perhaps that she's dead, and maybe when you die, you just become omniscient. So who knows? But we later find out that the lip tattoo thing never happened. So that's just something to keep in mind that just because we see it, because Rue told it to us, doesn't mean it happened. So, you may not like me, but you do love my style of dress, ma'am. Thank you, Yellowbone. I appreciate your appreciation for my fashion, despite not caring for other parts of me. It's quite all right. It is more than okay, even if you didn't like any part of me. Um, so then we see Maddie having that medical emergency at school. So kind of going back to what we talked about on Monday, the carnival episode where we saw that Nate got very angry at Maddie for throwing a scene or throwing a scene, causing a scene at the chili booth. And then, mentioning, I think she also mentioned the deep pics on his phone, and he kind of like strangled her by the throat. And so now she's at school. She's got bruising all over her neck. She's tried covering it up with concealer, and at this point she's wearing like a turtleneck, um a hoodie with the hood up, sunglasses. I don't know that matters, but she was also bearing in mind that she took substances. She and Cassie both took substances at the fair. Cassie had an embarrassing moment on the merry-go-round on the carousel, and Maddie hadn't eaten or slept, I think, since that over the course of that weekend, and was having a really bad come down. And so the combination of that plus everything she was wearing, all the layers she was wearing, and I think something like the air conditioning was out in their classroom. All of those things combined caused Maddie to pass out in the classroom. And so when she passed out, of course, they had EMTs come in and they found the bruising on her neck. So if you missed that, that's how that turned. Um, that's kind of how it went. Um, hey, no worries. Hey, Bette Davis, if somebody just like wants to click on me because they like my outfits, that's fine. That's fine. If people want to watch me, even if they don't like me, that's fine too. I am so done fighting with people like we are not meant to be liked by everyone. We're not. And to the I'm hoping, or not hoping, but I'm guessing the other person left, but like to your point, like yeah, I was trying too hard to make sure that everybody liked me before that you get to a breaking point when you realize, oh my god, I cannot make everybody like me, nor should that be something I'm striving for. And so, that wasn't I don't think that person liked my answer, but that's just that's how it is. I'm not gonna lie to you. I cannot give you my pageant girl answer that you want so badly because I'm trying to be real with you. Um, let's see. Okay. So now because they found the bruising on Maddie's neck, they had to report the A word, the ABU word. Um, and kind of, of course, pointing the finger at Nate, obviously, as her like on and off again boyfriend. So, let's see. So then they're going through this situation. Nate and Cal both pass Jules in the cafeteria, and that happens in slow motion, and it's awkward because you're talking about the guy, the young guy, her age, who has this weird love hate thing for her. It's very strong, and then followed by, oh yeah, that older man that I slept with in a motel room a few weeks ago, and now he's seeing me in high school, even though he thought I was 22 at the time. Like, mm, just so uncomfortable all around because it's already a very tense situation. Um, I didn't quite understand at first why Cal like threw up as soon as he got there until I realized with more analysis and watching videos about it. It's because you'll see this continual pattern of Nate and Cal protecting each other, and they're not protecting each other. You might say a little bit Cal's doing it out of love for, I think Cal loves Nate more than Nate loves Cal, just kind of by the nature of being a parent. And I do think that think they're both pretty shitty, but I think Cal is just a smidge better than Nate. But either way, they're both protecting each other for the same reason. And it's not out of love, it is out of protecting the image of themselves and their families. So that is something we have something we will see here and there. Um, um, Oh, Mona Lisa, well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you piping up and saying that, and saying that you don't mind the discussion. As long as you don't mind, I don't mind. I was not trying to be rude. I just I got the impression, so I was just like, oh, okay. I guess it wasn't an answer that the person didn't like, but I understand. Like, if we wanted to move on, and you didn't mind whatever answers, or what we had going back and forth, great. Honestly, fucking thank you, because that's what I do. That's what I want here. And now we've seen it happen with two people in this live. So I want to take a moment. I don't care if this live goes on forever. I don't care if it's long-winded and if it's meandering. If you've been here before, that's what you get here. But I just want to say thank you to those people, because it's happened a couple of times where we've had people say things that at first are just a little like, "Ooh, this is this making me uncomfortable, or is this person trying to offend me?" And it's like, no, people are genuinely like asking their questions, and maybe they agree or they don't agree with your reasons or your answers or whatever. But if we can talk to each other like people, even if we disagree, even if you don't like no, three people, because somebody else came in to say, like your outfits, but I don't like you. Like, if you don't like me or you disagree with what I'm saying, but you're still able to have like just like a baseline human respect in a conversation, like, fuck yeah, thank you. I just said the F word. I can go ahead and get demonetized now. But I want like that right here is perfectly like exemplifying what I'm trying to create by stepping back into the light in terms of being on YouTube, especially publicly. I've been doing it on Patreon, but especially publicly. I'm trying to shift the audience that is around me, and I'm totally okay with people who disagree with me or who want to probe or who have questions, so long as like you can handle the response. What I can't handle is people who come into a conversation, they pretend that they're just there for the discourse, but then they either want to debate you or they want to like see if they can get you in a gotcha moment, or they're just not going to accept any answer that you give. I hate that. There's no growth in that. Um there's nothing stimulating intellectually about that. And there's no understanding from that. But if anybody's here and they want to probe me and they want to ask me about like what are your motivations for this and that and how do you feel about this and that and the other, if you're open to hearing my responses, then fuck yeah, thank you for being here. Um yeah, I just wanted to take a moment for that. Um So, it's easy to be a smidge better than Nate because Nate is the worst. He is, but I am one of the few, like, again, eternal optimist, hoping that there will be a redemption for him eventually. And that is when, because they're going to have to explore the Jules love story. They're going to have to at some point. And so that's going to I think that's going to go hand in hand with some sort of redemption arc where we really start to love Nate. And then we're going to see something happen where he gets like, he's gotten Maddie or Cassie pregnant or something like that. I think something like that's going to happen. But that was a conversation for a different day last week on Patreon. So, um, let's see. You don't always have to agree with someone to still like and respect them. I agree with that. And you don't always have to uh, like somebody to agree with them or respect them or just have a conversation with them. And I'm totally here for people who are here for that. I feel like these jewels are kind of like sparkly freckles. Okay. So where are we? So they passed Jules in the cafeteria. I said, "Awk." And then have some quotes here. There's literally nothing Jules could ever do to make me upset. That's what Rue said, which is a little concerning anytime someone says that about anyone. Um, you know, you Yeah, I talk a lot on YouTube about putting people on pedestals. And, like I said, you come to a table and you're bringing, 100% empathy and understanding, 0% accountability. That's dangerous, just like the other is dangerous too. Like blind hatred or blind loyalty. I think they're both um, either at worst dangerous, but at best, like not conducive to growth. So yes, as Rachel says, red flag, red flag. So there's literally nothing Jules could ever do to make me upset. That's no, like rude. That's not somebody those are not the words of somebody with much self-love and self-respect, which we will see we will see Rue obviously as somebody who doesn't have much self-love or self-respect, but we'll start to see glimmers of her picking those pieces up. We talked about being a whole person but's in broken pieces, and she has to kind of find her pieces before she's whole enough to start healing. Um, and clearly, this is a sign that she doesn't have all of her pieces, even within reach. If she's saying that there's anything that somebody could do that could never make her upset, it's like, well, what if this person unalived your sister or cheated on you or like a lot, there's a lot of things. There's not a person in this world. There are people I love unconditionally, but there's not a person in this world who could never make me upset. Um, she talked about how she lost her V card, I guess, because real Jules, it's so difficult to separate their names because they both have the U's. Jules was kind of like probing her about how she lost her V card, and she said she ate 2 Xanny bars, drank a beer, which is super dangerous. Which I wonder if they added that note just for their audience, just to remind people that like we're not glamorizing substance abuse. We're not like it is a very dangerous thing to do. Do not mix narcotics and drinks and alcohol. Don't do it. So she said that that was how it happened. And so I said, noted, none of the actual substance scenes turn out positive for any of the characters. So back to the Nate and Maddie story. Nate's denying the claims, and then we get to hear from Ollie. I love Ollie. He says nothing about the relationship with Jules. Oh, high schoolers don't want to hear this. Nothing in high school lasts forever. And I wrote, Rue thinks she and Jules will live together after high school, which is a very common thing for high schoolers. I had my first boyfriend right outside of right out of high school, and we thought that we were going to be together forever, of course. Um, she admits to the AA meeting that she's been lying and that she actually wants to stay clean now. Um, I said, I think it's part Jules, but it's part of her work with Ali. So here's one of those first glimmers of hope that I see, because I wrote growth, even if she will regress or relapse later. And I know that I wrote like almost that exact note a few times throughout my notes. Growth, even though she will relapse later. We know she's going to relapse. But just because somebody relapses doesn't mean they're growing. The way I see it is like what I'm saying is they're finding their pieces and they're pulling them back together. Jules can be a tool that helps her see some of the things about herself that she should love, but Jules cannot make that happen for her. She cannot make her a whole person. But I do think that her willingness to perhaps be accountable to somebody like Jules, to love somebody, but more so her work with Ali. I think that her ability to stand up in front of the room and say, I've been lying about being clean this whole time. I haven't been, but I actually want to get clean. That is one of those, like, in AA we talk about chips, but like one of those chips of her as a person that we're trying to collect before we see her get long lasting recovery. Hey, Bailey Bear, you're welcome to be late. We're still on the first page notes, so who knows how long we'll be here. We're definitely not finishing at 7 o'clock. But I'm liking the conversation. So, and I like my outfit. I like my look today. Let's see. So that's a little moment of growth, in my opinion, from Rue. Jules is having dinner with David, her dad, and David tells her she's a good influence on Rue. And I put a heart next to David because I do like him. You got to love a good dad, especially a good single dad, a good single dad, somebody who's able to be loving and caring to Jules and all of her needs, and all of the very traumatic and tense and difficult things that she goes through, not just as a trans girl, but also as a girl who's lost her mom in some way or another. Um, I just think from what we see of him, he's just a fantastic dad. He may be putting too much on Jules' plate by encouraging her to be a good influence on Rue. Um, but every single character is flawed in some way or another. But I thought you were saying that Rue was just getting started on her putting her pieces together, and I was like, yeah, I kind of agree, but you're talking about me. Well, we've been talking about a lot of these concepts, but we're really just getting started on talking about the actual episodes. Um, then we also see that Rue wants to make amends with Lexi. So we see some growth there. Now we know that she's not going to be the best friend to Lexi again in the future. But still, the fact that she's taking time to reflect and make amends to Lexi or try or, make an apology, that's another bit of her grabbing her pieces together, pulling her pieces together. So, she could just completely wrap herself up in Jules and just say fuck it to the rest of the world. And she kind of does that sometimes. But I think this time around, we're seeing her try. She's trying. She's trying a little bit, but she is relying on Jules too much, in my opinion. Um, Maddie gaslights Cassie about the pics on Nate's phone, blames it on her brain being messed up from all the Molly you take. Um, I said at this point I might dislike Maddie as much as I dislike Nate, which later is not currently the truth, but yeah, in that moment I was just like, God, what a mean person. Kat feels empowered and in control through hooking up with random quote unquote cool guys. Um, which again, it's one of those things where you're like, get it, go, yes, like reclaim, your inner strength and be a boss and all that. But at the same time, you're like, ooh, you're 16, 17 years old, and like you're finding validation through. And not only that, the other thing I don't think I noted in here, which is so sad, is that, we see so much power that Kat is taking through these kinds of interactions with men, but she's missing out on the opportunities for those people. Like, she doesn't realize that her confidence doesn't just make guys want to hook up with her. Her confidence actually is just magnetizing people to her, and people are genuinely interested in her, and she doesn't see that. So she's talking to various different quote unquote cool guys, and like they're trying to talk to her. They're trying to talk to her about, like, who are you? Like, where, what do you do? Where are you from? What are you into? Blah blah blah. And she keeps saying to them, like, if you want to hook up, we can. And they're like, "That's not what I was trying to do." And they're like, "If you want to, we can. Like, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be all this." And so it's like she's missing the opportunity to actually be loved and appreciated for who she is, which is what people are offering her, and she just doesn't see it. So it's kind of sad. And that is a storyline that I'm sure, or I'm hopeful they will flesh out into something more mature. Um, And, Cat at the Carnival made me sad because she totally just bailed on Ethan without giving him a chance to explain that he was just talking to his sister's coworker. Um, the da, 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 da. But yeah, that makes me sad for her, though she is kind of like hooking up with like all the guys that went to her high school that used to be cool, and so like she's kind of, it's such a just a confusing journey with to go through with her. It's neither all good nor all bad. Lexi tells Jules that Rue is doing well because of her. I don't remember that, but I wrote it down. Oh, I think probably somebody said she's doing well, and Lexi said it's because of you. The first sign I see, oh, this is the first time, and this was upon second watching, that I see a sign of Jules looking pressured. Like, this is too much. It was when Lexi says it's because of you. Um, then we see Cal is in the with the in the motel room with Mina or Minako, and instead of wanting to hook up, he actually really just wants to talk to someone. And that moment was like, again, like I sometimes have a soft spot for Cal, and the way that Mina was like just kind of comforting Cal and just like, I don't know, honey, I don't know. Like I just thought that was really sweet. I don't know. That character seemed like comical at first, the way that they were like putting their legs out and just like doing all these like weird funky little dances, but then the fact that they were able to be like, even though that wasn't the agreement to be there and like emotionally support this man, like it was just really sweet. I don't know. Let's see. Nate, Maddie meet up at the motel where Cal is slash goes to, like his go-to spot. And I said we do see the grips of love. Oh, okay. We do see the grips of love in relationships with toxic dynamics, with Maddie as being clear that even though I don't like Maddie in some moments, she absolutely is a victim. She is a victim of DV, and abusive dynamics, and just like so much BS from Nate. She absolutely is a victim, whether we like her or not. And some of the shitty things she does is in support of this person who is terrorizing her. Um, so, but we see that in those sorts of relationships, oftentimes these people are so the magnetism is so strong, there's no separating the two. And that's what we kind of see with Maddie and Nate, the way they finally meet up at the hotel, and it's just like yeah, sad. Um, the last shot we see Rue is asleep on Jules, and Jules is awake and looks stressed. That's episode 5. So let's steam right ahead into the next episode. It's called The Next Episode, season 1, episode 6. So this is the cold open with McKay's backstory. So we see that he has a strict father. I've mentioned this before, similar to Cal Jacobs, but possibly his speech that he gives to McKay. It's very much about, don't react if somebody upsets you or they really like get to you. Don't show it, don't react, don't show it, push it down, push it down, push it down, push it down, and then, like let it out through football. And it's in that sense, it's effective for McKay, and he becomes a good athlete, a strong athlete. But we see that this sensitive person really struggles with how he shows that. And I was saying that when I said this on Monday, but one of the differences I think between him and Cal Jacobs is that I think that this speech might be a bit symbolic or generalized to parenting around the Black experience. It's quite possible that McKay's father had a similar upbringing for different reasons than Cal or Nate did. Oftentimes, and like I said, I've seen some of this kind of in hearing how my dad would teach my brothers, but don't get angry, don't get violent, don't react, don't let them see you hurt. You just have to take it, force it down, and find a way to release it through something healthy. For my dad, it was always like, you know, really strict self-discipline through the military. Um, so yeah, it's a sad thing to see, and it's still absolutely an issue in our society. Um, but we don't know for sure because they didn't say explicitly that that was one of the reasons. That's just something that I've wondered. And in fact, I more than wonder. I don't see how they can even like avoid that even being really an issue that they are talking about. Um, so I said, why didn't McKay turn out anything like Nate? It's something to consider. Because we can all the excuses that Nate has for why he is that way, McKay has the same excuses. So why? Just like I say, like Rue keeps giving all these excuses for why she uses substances, whereas other people have just as valid reasons for having, their own issues. So it kind of makes you wonder, like it all comes out in different ways for different people. Um, Now we're at the Halloween party. Rue tries to kiss Jules. Jules evades. Again, see, like we talked about this on Monday. There was a scene in which Rue tries to kiss Jules, and then Jules like doesn't like kind of like backs away, and then Rue's super embarrassed, and that's when she runs off to Fez's house. Now we're at the Halloween party. We know by this point Jules is very like she's reached her breaking point with like taking care of Rue, and now she's like getting drunk and just kind of like reciting reciting Shakespeare. I was trying to think of what the word was for like passages from Shakespeare. But Rue tries to kiss Jules and Jules evades. Which just makes me even angrier to get to the point later that I know Jules says, I want you to kiss me without asking me. And it's like, well, she's tried to do that a few times. Um, so at the Halloween party, yeah, so Rue notices that Jules is drunk. Rue is worried something is off with Jules, and she's afraid of making it worse by asking. So that's kind of putting you in a dangerous spot. So she's knows something's off. She doesn't want to ask. She's watching Jules act drunk and then has to stop Gia from partying and smoking with Troy again. Um, I said, why did I say Troy with roughs up Troy with Lexi. Yeah, they work together kind of like before when, like or at one point, I think actually this happens later here, but I think this starts the cop scene. And so they kind of double team Troy by doing the whole good cop, bad cop thing and with Lexi. And I think it's hilarious. I love it. Um, Rue talks to Fez and apologizes. So again, she's trying to make amends. Fez isn't upset. He doesn't take what addicts say personally. And I made a note. He understands what that drugs make people different. So he says, even the things they say, like "I love you," "I hate you," all of it. He's like, it doesn't mean anything to him because he knows that like when people are really in it, then everything they say and do is in service of trying to get that fix. So he doesn't take it personally. So it's sad in a way, but it's also you appreciate that about Fez that he does have that understanding of how addicts operate. He says they say I love you. They thank him for not. Oh, and then sorry, they say I love you to each other, and then Ruth thanks him for not selling her drugs. Um, she said, "I've been messed up for so long, it feels like another drug." And so I was just like, "Yep, that's very much the case when when you've been messed up for so long, then you finally are off of everything. It that in and of itself feels like a new thing." And they call in AA, they call that like first and third 90-day period, or sometimes 30 days, sometimes they kind of 90 days, but really the first 30 days they call it a pink cloud because it's like you're almost intoxicated on being clean and sober because it feels so good. You have so many good feelings. Oh, the Rue and Lexi Cop thing, Peps, I agree. It's really cute. Um, where was I? So again, that's another sign of I think another sign of Rue kind of picking up the pieces of herself. Then we see the really difficult scene where the frat bros assault McKay while he's in bed with Cassie. So they run in, they're all naked. They film and humiliate him, like they kind of tackle him and film the whole thing. And it's so humiliating for him that he goes into the bathroom and he cried. And that's where you see him kind of like looking at himself in the mirror and really intuiting the things his dad taught him. Don't don't let this show, don't let it get to you, don't react, don't let all of that. And he kind of just like after crying just the tiniest bit, he kind of like stuffs it all down, and then tries to go back and continue with Cassie. And then they just have this really uncomfortable scene where they try to finish what they were doing, and neither of them was really into it, but he was trying to act like it didn't get to him when clearly it did. So, um, Jules is drunk in the pool. Rue tries to talk. Jules recites Romeo and Juliet. Um, and I don't have in front of me exactly the part that she recited, but it was essentially that part of the play is kind of like expressing doubt, hesitancy, maybe caution, I believe. And then next, because now we're at they were at one Halloween party and then there's another Halloween party. Cassie is now at another Halloween party and is hooking up with Daniel. And McKay's looking for her. And Lexi saves her. Now I'm thinking about it. How many times, geez, how many times are they sneaking around and McKay's just looking for Cassie where like she's messing around with somebody different? Um, Lexi rescues people. Oh, and I made a note here. Lexi rescues people from consequences. So you can absolutely see that as something born out of her good heart. She's sweet, she's caring, she's loving, she wants to look after people. but also some of this behavior. Again, this is goes back to really difficult balance, because at what point are you enabling people by saving them from their consequences, which Lexi sometimes does. We know she's one of my favorites. I love her. We see Tyler again after the hospital. He's in a really bad shape. Nate blackmails him into confessing to strangling Maddie. Jules was blackmailed into acting as a witness by making a false statement. Name I can't read. That's not a very nice thing. Ugh. That's not a very nice thing to say to someone. Why would you? The trials. Okay, so we're at season 1, episode 7. The trials and tribulations of trying to pee while depressed. I don't love these titles, I'll be honest with you. Like I want to see them as like poetic or cutesy or like kitschy, but they're just like they're lacking something that just doesn't sound like almost want to compare them to the poetry of somebody that I've interacted with online, but I don't want to be a mean girl. It's not anybody anyone's thinking about. It's seriously not. But we have another cold open on thank you, Rachel. Another cold open on Cassie's backstory. So both parents we find are on slash addicted to substances, but dad is not functioning. So that's something that we've come to learn about Cassie's parents through her backstory. We also learned things like she's into ice skating and doesn't really do much with that later in life. Rue prefers. Oh, this is something I liked. Rue is watching TV, but she prefers reality TV versus anything like any storyline with any sort of like substance. She says she likes reality TV, pure, effortless entertainment. And I made a note that I can relate circa 2009. I remember watching messy reality TV because, in a sense, it made me feel like maybe I had my life together better than someone. So I would watch I don't think I watched a lot of Jersey Shore, even though that was probably around the same time, but a lot of like Rock of Love and like really messy like reality shows like that, and just like feel a little bit better about how much of a mess I was. Um, but um So yeah, but she's too depressed to go to the bathroom. And it's really kind of confusing because she's too depressed to get up and go to the bathroom, but she also talks about like, and they show montages of like all the times that she's tried to pee while she was on something, and like basically explains to the audience that like her brain would stop sending the signals to tell her body to go ahead and relax and release. And so essentially, in I guess in both perhaps it's in both scenarios, depression and when you're messed up on substances. But she's essentially giving herself a kidney infection by not not peeing. Um, During this time, Rue isn't hearing back from Jules. Um, Jules has been pretty reclusive after Halloween. I think she said something like for a week. Um, that was around the time that she helped Nate. So she's really seems like, something's off and she's just like hiding. Yeah, definitely the VH1 reality shows, Elise. Yeah, all of those. All those, Daisy of Love too, or whatever her show was called, and, um, hilarious. Oh, I said hilarious cop scene with Lexi. I love this. So this is where, and her outfit. This if I could have put together that outfit for this, I would have done that. But where, so here is where we start to think you have to keep in mind where Rue has talked about her diet, where she was diagnosed as a kid. They said possible bipolar disorder. So we see her going through episodes of being like too depressed to even get up out of bed and go to the bathroom. And then we see her in these moments of like intense mania. And so There's this cop scene with Lexi, and she's, like, super suspicious, and she goes into, like, she's figured all these things out, and she's suspicious. She knows that Nate is Tyler, and that Tyler Clarkson, which is the name of the actual Tyler, was blackmailed into admitting to doing that to Maddie. And I said it's a comical depiction of, you know, what's possibly mania. Um, and then and then after that scene, Rue Googles bipolar. Um, so I think that's just kind of confirmation that that's what it is. What are y'all talking about? Okay, I'll just chatting. Okay, Cassie asks advice regarding Daniel, Kat, and Maddie fight. Oh, so this is where I guess she has them at the table, and she wants advice from her friends, and Kat and Maddie just like start fighting. Um, Cal lectures Nate. He's not sure that he taught Nate right, and he tells him that. Leslie starts dating Rick. Ooh. So I have a quote here where she says, Rick, I sincerely apologize for telling you to F yourself. What I meant to say is that my mom can do better, and I hate to see you sitting in the chair that my dad used to sit in. Ouch. Rick, he's just like, ugh, cringe. Rue suggests Fez he should use a gun to scare Nate. She's still writing on a manic episode, and she wants revenge for messing with Jules. The way she gestures. I just made notes at some points because of Zendaya's like physical comedy. Like it's just so super subtle, like very subtle reactions to certain things that I just find hilarious. Like I might have noted it later, but when Leslie meets Ollie and she's like, "Oh, he's very handsome," and then Rue's like, is very much like a teenager. And then I laughed when it says when she's basically going on and on to Fez, and Fez is just trying to like take care of his grandma while Rue is on something on one. She's writing on a manic episode, wants revenge. The way she gestures when Fez yells um, to sit down and STFU, she goes, okay. And I thought it was just really funny and cute. Okay. She at that point she is tempted to take grandma's medicine, and she's done with other people before. Um, and then we see her. I don't think she does. But then on her way home, you see some signs of her OCD where she's counting her steps on her way home. Her her depression collapses time, she says. She calls it one big insufferable loop. Memories of joy fade, and you start to believe that all of life is and will be this way. Now Jules is visiting a friend. She's visiting friends and telling them about Rue. At this point, Jules's look is starting to change a little bit. She went from a lot of like pinks and a little bit of like blues, but like really like soft and like kind of the way Fez described her, like Sailor Moon, super feminine looks and colors. And now a little harsher, like she's starting to get like the red streaks in her hair, the black streaks in her hair too, red eye makeup. So she's visiting her friends or a friend, and then ends up meeting another friend there. And she's telling them about Rue and says that they are quote unquote not in the best place. So Rue, not sure what she would say about the relationship, but last thing we know is like she's doing everything she can to protect Jules, and there's nothing Jules can do to upset her. But according to Jules, they're not in the best place. So yikes. Yes, Zendaya is an icon, 100. Um, so she also says to this friend, and I want to talk about this for a moment, but she says, if I can conquer men, I can conquer femininity. She talks about this in the special, and I want to clarify this because I've heard a lot of videos talk about Jules and why she looks the way she looks, the way she why she dresses the way she dresses, etc. And they e every video you see that talks about this says because she is trying to dress for men. That's what I hear everyone say. She's dressing for men. She's dressing how she imagines men want her to dress so that men will want her, and then if men want her, then she feels she's conquered femininity, and that is, um, something that she's dealing with through her journey as a trans girl. However, if you watch the special, and I think this is not just something that Jules as a trans girl deals with, but this is something that I think all girls and women have understood to some point. She says in the special that it's not even about men, that she says it's girls. It's almost girls that she's dressing for because she says that the way girls look at each other, she's like they don't even might even not know that they're doing it, but they, they size you up. The moment they see you, they look at your bodily proportions and they like check you out and they assess you. They assess you and your femininity. So I kind of wish people would stop saying like Jules is just dressing for men. Jules is just dressing for men. She's just dressing for men. No, she's dressing for women. And sure, it may be in competition for the attention of men, generally speaking, but she talks about this concept of conquering femininity and then realizing that perhaps her gender expression isn't really true to her identity so much as it is kind of this game she's playing to conquer quote unquote conquer femininity. um yeah, we all see everybody in the chats like girls judge girls for sure. um so yeah, anyway, Cassie talks to McKay about being pregnant. He says he's not ready and she will one day make the best mother. And I wrote, why do people vilify McKay for this? See, as an example, like 6 months ago, maybe I wouldn't have been able to say that on my channel. Would not have felt comfortable, I should say, saying that on my channel. Because like I think that the reason is that people are like, let Cassie do what she wants with her body. And for sure, like he shouldn't stop her from having the baby if she wants to have the baby. But I do believe that, in these situations when you're going to include the father of the baby in talking having the conversation about it, I think he should be allowed to express his opinion. That doesn't mean that he's stopping her from doing. I know that Cat Black was just kind of like, yeah, fuck him for that. But I'm just kind of like, why can't he say that? Why can't he say he's not ready? I mean, if you were like, I definitely say to people like that, if you're not ready, why the fuck aren't you wearing condoms? But I just don't see this as enough to make McKay an unlikable character, which I've learned that a lot of people don't like him, and I'm just like, because of that? That's why? Um, because it was all about how it's gonna mess his life up. But honestly, like, agreed, but of course, like, they're 18, 19 years old. Everything is about their what it's going to do to their lives. It's all about that. They it that in a sense that happened to Cal. Could you find a way to make it work and not mess up your life? Like, I would hope so. That's what my mom and my dad did with me. Like, well, my dad didn't get my mom pregnant, but he met her when she made the decision to keep me, and my dad made the decision to be with her. But like, yeah, he is too young. He's he it's not like they've been together for several years and they're adults and they're in a stable place where you're like, "Oh, how selfish of him." And even still, I would still say like a person has the right to say like, I don't know if this is something that I want to go through with, in my opinion." Um I agree that he did kind of start to go off, but then when he saw that it was getting to her, he comforted her. It wasn't awesome. I agree. But I just don't think that it was enough to make him a, a villain, like where some people like don't like him. And I'm like, really? That's why? Um, I'm not saying that he handled it the best. For sure, he didn't. But I think that he's okay. I think he's well within his rights to not feel ready and to express that. He could have done better. Fez tells I wrote Fez tells Jake, but I'm pretty sure I meant Nate because his name is Nate Jacobs, and then his first name is Jacob Elordi, and then I have a Jake. So every time I go to say Nate, and then I say Jake. So I says Fez tells Jake to leave Rue and Jules alone. So I think Nate. Fez tells Nate to leave Rue and Jules or Jewel alone. That's Can we all admit that that is like one of Fez's like most shining moments? Or a few of them when he refers to Jules as Jewel. Um, that's so funny. I said Jacob insults Fez. I keep calling him Jake and Jacob. Nate. Nate insults Fez and says to go F yourself because he kind of just does the whole like, aren't you half of an R slur and aren't you just a drug dealer and da da da, you should just go F yourself. And then Fez threatens to unalive him and then calls him Playboy, which is cute. He calls him Playboy a couple of times. So Rue is struggling to walk because she is developing a kidney infection. Yeah. Yeah, Fez is the best. I believe that mistaking her name for Jewel, I think that was probably all Angus Cloud. Um, let's see. Rue is struggling to walk with a kidney infection. Jules is doing substances with friends. Kisses Anna while the song "I'm Not in Love" plays. She's having these kind of like substance abuse visions of Nate. Their fantasies about Nate, but then also of Rue while she's hooking up with Anna. So while she's with Anna, she keeps seeing Nate and Rue. Um, then kind of move back to Cassie. Cassie says she needs Cat. This is where Cassie goes up to Suze, where Suze is asleep on the couch, wakes her up and says, "I need you." And then I said, "Mom steps up with love." And this is the moment where I really, really started to love Suze. Because yes, she has 2 parents that are both dependent on substances, but you have one parent that's like, It doesn't matter. I'm gonna do whatever I need to do to be there for my children." So I really love her. I love how she was there, even though leading up to that moment, there were so many times where she was like, "Don't get pregnant. Don't get pregnant. Do not get pregnant." And then she did, and instead, Suze was just there to be supportive. Um Nate sends the police department to Fez's, and they have to flush everything that was fronted by Mouse that they didn't even want to take on. Mouse kind of pushed these pills on them, and was just like made them take them, and so they ended up having to flush all of that. And Leslie finds Rue collapsed in the hall, more from dealing with the kidney infection, and helps and supports her. It's the same hall. I think that there's some symbolism here because it's the same hall from the scenes where they're looking at her OD'd in her room, the same hall where they're fighting. I put heart Leslie here. She reassures her, she's proud of her, and she cuddles her to sleep. Rue realized that one of the things she notices is that her therapist talks about how these feelings of depression will wax and wane. But then she realizes that this waxing and waning, although it means that the depression won't stay, it also will never leave her for the rest of her life. So it's kind of a just like kind of a bummer. Um she said it's cuz he's white, and if he wasn't white, we wouldn't like him as much. We said that about who? I like McKay until he treated Cassie the college situation. I feel bad. They did. She said it's because he's white. Who's white? Tell us, Rosie. Wait, I saw a video yesterday. Someone saying that Fez is one of their least favorite characters, and I was shocked. And it's because he's white. No. Mm-mm. No. 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 Because he's white? Like, I just talked about the comparisons between McKay and Nate. I mean, it's obviously, like, it's easy to say that Nate is, like, not a good character. No, I think that Fez is everything opposite of Nate is. I think that socially in terms of social standing, Nate is everything that's good and shiny and beautiful. He comes from a rich family. He's tall, he's handsome, he does well in school. He's everything that's good in terms of the way that what society values versus Fez. He comes from like, they have money because of the nature of the business, but they come from like this like low society. He's not very well educated. He lives a seedy life, like lots of criminal behavior. Like they both engage in criminal behavior, but Fez actually gets in trouble. Like so, he's bad in the eyes of society and social standing, but what you see is really shit character in Nate, and you see tons of kindness and sensitivity and caring in Fez. So whoever you heard that said that was cannot speak for everyone. So that's fine for her to feel that way, but I don't do not think you can say that about everyone. Um And Salt the Earth Behind You is season 1, episode 8, the title of the and Rosie, I hope it doesn't sound like we were ganging up on you. You were just a messenger. I'm not trying to beat you up over it. I just disagree. Um, and Salt the Earth Behind You is the name of the episode of episode 8. So, I looked this up. So, salting the earth, if you Google that, is a ritual of spreading salt in the soil of conquered land by the conquerors, thereby preventing the conquered from rebuilding. And I think it's just interesting because we've been talking about the concept of Jules, quote unquote, conquering femininity. So, she even says, I think to Anna that she doesn't want to just conquer it, she wants to obliterate it. So she's gonna undergo her own transformation. Um, it says cover Jules. Oh, the cover, the photo associated with this image is Jules with a new look. She's definitely less feminine. She's got the red eye makeup, and that's where she has like the black streaks. And then of course we go on to see her start dressing differently and she cuts her hair and stuff like that. I think Elliot calling her out for wearing binders and stuff like that. Um, so Rue's in the hospital. She's trying to get drugs. They offer her like Vicodin or something like that for the pain for her kidney infection. Um, and let's see, and then it doesn't work out. She tries to say like, "Oh no, like that didn't work for me. I needed something stronger." And then the doctor comes back. He's like, "Looking at your chart here, looks like you have a lot of issues with painkillers. So you're gonna stick with Tylenol for now." But she's on antibiotics and antidepressants. And then she makes a note about how she loves hospitals because there's no responsibilities and quote unquote, if anything bad happens, there's always a doctor nearby. So she has zero anxiety. And I think that's so funny. And I like note that because I feel the same. I wrote same. Like Jake, the like side note, just like a little bit of a story. When Jake was a little kid, when he was like 3 or 4 years old, he had he dealt with E. coli poisoning, and he and his mom like lived in the hospital for at least like a month, and just his mom being terrified that he wasn't going to survive. So he himself like has developed this like anxiety around any medical setting. So like having to go to the doctor's office and stuff is difficult for him. Me on the other hand, I'm like Rue. I love hospitals because I am on top of the whole like not having any responsibilities. That's definitely how it feels like when you go to rehab. That's one of the beauties of rehab is that like there's nothing else you really need to worry about except what you're there for. Um, that person also doesn't care for Lexi. Yeah, it just sounds like somebody who thinks probably very opposite than I do. Um, but yeah, I being the way that I am and the like, I can be a bit of a hypochondriac. Like, like I might have like fibrocystic changes in my chest or whatever, and then I'm just like, my heart, something's gonna happen. Da, da, da." Like I worry so much about things happening, so that when I like even the last time I went to the doctor's office, like I started to get really like I think it was just anxiety, and I started to get really dizzy, and so I was just like. Well, thank God I'm in the doctor's office because if something goes wrong, well, they can take care of me. They even noted that they were like, "Your vitals are totally fine." They're like, "Your pulse is a little elevated, so you're probably just a little anxious." Um, but I too have a sense of like a lot of comfort and no anxiety in being in a hospital setting. Um, Jules visits and asks if it's her fault that Rue ended up in the hospital. Is it her fault for leaving? Um, Let me see. Absolutely the beauty of rehab, 100% coffee bean. Um, so Rue says, in response to Jules asking if this is her fault, Rue says, "No, I've been like this my whole life, but you make it better." And then in this scene, oh, and then we see a scene in which Rue is shooting a gun at Nate while he's on fire, which I'm sure that like probably triggered a lot of people, but there's no warning. Um, but juxtaposed with oh, I guess this is the opening. So like right after they did that, they played Rhythm of the Night by DeBarge, and it was just like a really like cheeky, I guess, juxtaposition between that song and that scene. Um then put a question mark, rehab flashback. It They keep kind of going back to this scene where Leslie's giving a speech. She's in the church, the same church that we see in a few scenes. Leslie's giving a speech about Rue. It's a super loving, sweet, honest speech about the struggles. And then I put heart Leslie plus David. I ship Leslie and David because this is where we also see them like sharing a couple of drinks together, and they're just like they're not just getting along, they're like flirting. She's like touching his leg, and Rue and Jules are getting ready to go to the winter formal, and Leslie and David are having a drink and enjoying each other's company, and I hope they do something with that relationship. um but during the speech that we kind of keep going back to, we see other mothers and daughters. So while Leslie's giving her speech, it's showing like Suze and Cassie. It's showing Kat and her mom. So it's kind of in my opinion, it goes to show that these feelings of love that Leslie has for her daughter, but also the fears that she has for her, the worries she has for her, are kind of universal with mother, at least with mothers and daughters that we're seeing. So it's almost like these words that Leslie is kind of citing are applicable to everyone. Um, Fez gives grandma a kiss and then leaves with a gun. I said, "Cat stunning, the rockabilly look with bangs, heart heart at the winter formal." Nate walks in with a date with a hand up her skirt. Ugh. And then Maddie Maddie says, first of all, ew. Second of all, ew. And I said, same. Um, how many dances do you have in American high schools? Because it seems so many. It all depends on which high school, but we usually had like um, homecoming is for the whole school, like, ninth grade through 12th grade has homecoming every year, and then prom is for juniors and seniors, so 11th and 12th graders. So it's usually 1 to 2 dances a year, really. But in TV shows, it's like homecoming, winter formal, spring formal, prom, like, it's really not that many. You met the actress that Nate took to the dance? That's funny. Um Later, Nate can't perform with Maddie, and Maddie um, finds the disc in his room and she leaves. She takes the disc and she goes. Um, Cal lectures Maddie, I guess, on her way out and tells her that she and Nate are wrong for each other and that she should let go. Um, and he said, "I don't know you, but I know my son." And so it makes me I'm interested in that because, like, again, we're here, Cal lecturing another young person, and part of you, just like I said, I validated what Cat Black said about, like, the way he talked to Jules is like condescending, but at the same time, like, it's coming from a place of him not growing up at the same time and having the same, I guess, privileges you could say of being able to be more open. Um, but in this moment, he's lecturing Maddie. He's always referred to Maddie as a distraction. He doesn't like her. He doesn't like her. But here, I think it's really key that he says, "I don't know you, but I know my son." So I think he's saying, "You're not good for each other because my son is the bad guy." That's what I think. Last page. So let's finish this up here. Um, so I said, haha, Rue's dancing. Oh, I think 'cause she's just like flipping birds. She's just like doing this. And oh yeah, and miming gunfire at Nate. Um, Side note, I always thought Maddie's outfits. Oh, I think I can find this out for sure, probably. But I think Maddie's outfits are inspired by Selena at the Houston Astrodome. Has anybody else made that connection? Selena at the Houston Astrodome, she's got it's longer sleeve, but she's so Maddie's color is purple, right? We usually see her in purples. She's also Mexican. We also hear her listening to Selena. And then Selena's outfit is like it has this like crisscross in the front, but it's like it bears her belly, and then it shows her like it's tight around her butt, and then they're flared. It's very much like what Maddie's outfits look like. Oh, okay. Elise is a Houstonian, so you know exactly what I mean when I say Selena at the Houston Astrodome. Um, so it's the purple, it's the sparkly purple outfit. If anybody's seen Selena, I do think that that her costuming was inspired by Selena. I said, plus we hear her listening to Selena while babysitting. Nurse asks Cassie family history of substances, mom alcohol, dad painkillers, then heroin and other stuff. Rue and Nate have a confrontation. Nate says he sees Jules as someone who dreams and somebody who will do something with her life when most won't. So, like, he goes on to insult Rue in this moment and basically tell her like she's a loser and she's not going to do anything with her life. But he made it a point to talk about Jules and how she is going to do something with her life. He sees her really like doing something with it when nobody else will. And so, like, you really think like you're in love with her and it's kind of coming out in these little like moments. Um do 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 Um, Flashback from the night before, Cal and Nate had that really scary fight where Nate is thrashing and banging his head. He's hysterical. He's crying. Kind of, it's almost like his anger is finally uncanned. And then at the formal, Nate and Jules share a passing glance, which they seem to do a lot of in a lot of different situations, parties, dances, stuff like that. They share passing glances. Jules admits that she's in love with Anna. Everybody's in love with multiple people. Did I say that last time? Everybody's in love with at least two people. Jules admits she is in love with Anna when Rue asks, and uh, Rue, oh, she's admits that she's in love with Anna and Rue. Fezco, and then we also jump to Fezco robbing the doctor who is the Mouse's supplier. So in order to make up the money that he lost by flushing all the stuff down the toilet, he is now robbing the supplier of Mouse, who is a doctor. Um, then going back to the party, Rue really kisses Jules after proposing that they run away. Um, Fez beats the doctor in front of a young child. I don't know if it's his son or some other family member, but he beats him in front of a very young child. Cassie is at the clinic and the procedure is complete. Rue is having doubts about running away, and Jules is hyped about it, about the idea. Rue backs out and Jules leaves. She starts like kind of giving excuses on the way out. Like she's thinking about her family. She's thinking about how she needs her medication. Um, and then we kind of return to Leslie's speech, hoping that Rue will give herself a chance, that the good times last. Which is funny because it just reminded me of like I know a lot of people have like taken movies from the soundtrack or like music from the soundtrack basically, but the one I really like is I don't remember the name. I think it's called Good Times maybe, but like the one that goes that I know there's gonna be good times. There's gonna be good. That's my favorite song from the show. But she says that she's hoping that Rue will give herself a chance, that the good times last. And I put a little note here about growth. I think that this is growth in Rue. I've heard other people talk about this in a different light. This scene where it's like Rue, yeah, Rue, it was her idea, and then she backs out. It's like, yeah, like teenagers always have these like, these cockeyed ideas, and then they just like don't end up going through with them because they were just like not, they were half-assed. Um, but I think that Rue, like, genuinely, she was thinking about running away, and then she took a moment to really consider, like, what she was leaving behind, and it was she realized she had a life and a family that she was going to be leaving behind, and she stayed. So I think that's another moment of her finding her pieces. Um, Flashbacks, fighting with mom, dad being sick. And then this is where we've talked about this a few times, when they take her dad away, this is where she picks up his hoodie from the bed. And so we learned that this hoodie that she's always wearing, the big burgundy hoodie, is her kind of her comfort blanket because it belonged to her dad. Um, then we see her fighting with her mom. Um, And then the ways that she says, "You make me want." I just quoted, "You make me wanna," and if I'm like, "What? Who am I, Usher? You make me wanna." Uh, uh, uh. No, but what she's trailing off into is like she's fighting with her mom because her mom's saying like, "Hey, I think you're using. I think you're using," and she's like, "You make me want to." And I made a note of that because of how many times I've heard that from addicts in my life, particularly RJ, who I talked about in some videos. Like, there's so much gaslighting that happens in situations with dealing with active addicts and active addiction that when you fight with them, oftentimes they will tell you that you make them want to do the thing that you guys are talking about. So that way, if it does happen, they can kind of put the blame on you, at least partially. But those are just flashbacks to some fights that she's had with Leslie. It says, Rue cries on the way home, I guess, from the train station. And when she gets home, she snorts something. and then starts crashing to the walls, and then the whole church choir choreography moment happens. And I know that this moment, for a lot of people, like, thought it meant death. And we've seen a couple of similar moments, but this is the one where, like, the choir is, like, hoisting her up, and they do all these dance moves. And I forgot to note what song was playing while they were playing, but it's basically a song about just, like, not being in a good place in life. And I think it's open to interpretation. I'd love to see what other people think of this, but what I think we're seeing now with this church choir, which, assuming that everybody's already watched the rest of the finale, we know that there's another church scene. And so I think both of those symbolize salvation. And that can mean either religious salvation or just in general, the idea of redemption and forgiveness for your behavior, your ability to still be seen as a good person. And I think where they are right now with this choir scene, because you see this, it's a church choir, right? And they're like bringing her in, but it's not like later where you just have a church choir that brings her in and embraces her and comforts her. Kind of it's chaotic. They're in this crazy, like, I say a dance, but it's not like a dance that's intimate in any way. It's, like I said, chaotic. And then you see excuse me, it kind of almost reminds me of, I might have already said this before, but it kind of reminds me of, Childish Gambino's, This Is America. Like, it's chaotic, and in fact, these members of the choir start, like, seem like almost like demonic at times, like they're scary, they kind of almost look like zombies a little bit. So it's kind of, I think this, like, I think some, please tell me what you took from it, or if I'm like way off base according to you, or not. But it's very seemingly of this, like, just this struggle between, am I salvageable, basically? Am I worth salvation? Can I attain that? Can I be redeemed? Because here I am, I'm going again. Um, and I think that she's going to get to the point where she learns that she is worthy of that, no matter what. And the presence of the choir there is a sign that that's always there. But right now, she's really struggling with believing whether or not she's good enough to be considered good. So um, that's what the season ended on. Yeah, and that's, I guess, why people believed that she perhaps unalived. But but yeah, I think it was just symbolic of just where she was in her life at that point, contemplating whether or not she was capable of being a good person. And here we are. It is 7:45. We went over a good while. I think I lost y'all. Um We'll pick up with season 2 as of tomorrow. Thank you again, you guys, for letting me, take yesterday as I needed to because of migraine city. Um, and then just to patrons, let's let's expect to do our, Euphoria special on Sunday, if that works for you. Sunday around the our usual time. That way you can give us another day in between, another break. You were just listening. Oh, I appreciate that. I'm losing my voice at this point, though. And now I hear the pre 8 p.m. bells, the 7:45 bells. I really love this talk. Thank you guys for chatting with me. I love that it got contentious at points. Thank you. Thank you to the people who asked me questions and challenged me. Um, Thank you to the people who agreed and disagreed with certain points. It's interesting to hear how everybody's interpreting certain characters and their story arcs. And um, yeah, we'll see how season 2 goes. It's a mess. It's kind of a mess, but I love the show, so I'm excited to just keep talking about how it goes. This was perfect. Yay. I really just like the look today, I think. I think this is just kind of how I want to dress on the regular. So, all right, guys. Yep, we'll talk season 2 tomorrow. So, I'll let you go. I love y'all. Patrons, I'll see you over on Discord. But otherwise, nice chat. I agree. Love you. And we'll talk tomorrow. Bye.